Harvest season is war. Not with people, at least, not usually, but with time, weather, and the land itself. Every hour lost can mean acres spoiled. So, when I saw my tractor missing that morning, it wasn't confusion I felt. It was the still, cold clarity of someone who knows he's just been sabotaged. I'd parked the machine, my John Deere 6130R, with a 20-foot grain header, right where I always did, on the gravel easement that borders my fields and the end of Clover Ridge's tidy cul-de-sac. The line between suburban perfection and honest farmland. My land. And now it was gone. At first, I thought maybe my farmhand had moved it early. But my phone had no messages, and there were fresh tire tracks, broad and deep, like someone had hauled it with a flatbed. Then I saw the notice, laminated and taped to the HOA signpost in that signature red ink that practically screamed smug bureaucracy. Notice of towed vehicle. Per Clover Ridge HOA bylaws, Section 3B, no commercial equipment may be parked overnight within view of residential property. Violators will be towed at owner's expense. I crumpled it in my fist. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was calculated. Precise. And I already knew exactly who was behind it. Cheryl Knight. She called herself the president of community standards, but everyone in Clover Ridge called her Karen. Not even behind her back, just to her face when she was out of earshot. Clipboard always in hand, a constantly buzzing tablet under her arm, and that tightly wound ponytail that never moved. She patrolled the sidewalks like a general, wrote citations like love letters. She hated my farm, said it undermined the visual cohesion of the community, that it brought in dust, noise, and undesirable smells. She once tried to fine me for operating machinery before 9 a.m. during planting season. I'd laughed. She hadn't. I walked her house. Number 12. White siding. Yellow roses. Lawn trimmed with surgical precision. She was already on her porch, sipping coffee from a bone-white mug and smiling like she'd just won a trophy. "Morning, Mr. Beckett," she called. "Lovely weather, isn't it?" "You towed my tractor," I said. She blinked innocently. "Oh, was that yours?" It was left in clear violation of the bylaws. Blocking community views. Posing a safety hazard. "It was on my easement," I replied. "Land I've owned since long before this HOA even existed." She tilted her head. "Well, we had a landscaping review last quarter. Turns out your easement now falls under the community aesthetic boundary. I'm sure you understand. We have to maintain harmony for all residents." I took a breath, then another. "I leased that farmland to the state of Missouri under contract," I said. "That tractor was on the job. You're interfering with government operations." Her smile widened. "Then perhaps they should read our covenants more closely." I stared at her. She stared back. And in that long, still moment, I saw what I hadn't before, not just spite or petty control. She enjoyed this. She lived for it. "You have no idea what you've done," I said. "Oh, I think I do," she said, then turned and went inside. By the time I got to the towing company, 25 miles out, they were already hesitant. Said they didn't realize it was a state-licensed AG vehicle. Said they'd need a signed release, 2 forms of ID, and a $900 fee. I paid it. There was no time to argue. Wheat doesn't wait. But the moment I climbed back into that cab, I wasn't thinking about the harvest. I was thinking about the game Cheryl Knight had just chosen to play. The rules she thought she understood. The land she thought she controlled. She'd pulled her move. Now it was my turn. Cheryl Knight may have ruled Clover Ridge with bylaws and laminated notices, but she didn't understand the first thing about the land she tried to control. While she drafted neighborhood codes, I signed state contracts. While she wrote up noise violations, I was coordinating irrigation schedules with agronomists. The difference between us was simple. She clung to imaginary authority. Mine was backed by law. Still, the damage was done. That tractor was integral to the harvest, and losing even half a day had cost me a third of a section's yield. Wheat wasn't just a crop, it was a ticking clock. Moisture levels, wind conditions, and equipment timing all had to align. She didn't tow a machine. She stole hours of precision labor. But I wasn't going to scream at her. People like Cheryl thrived on outrage. They counted on it. What she didn't count on was what I did next. The first call I made was to the county assessor's office. I requested boundary verification for parcel 182B, my land. I wanted confirmation that the gravel easement where I'd parked the tractor was legally mine. The clerk, a woman named Judy, dug through records and got back to me within the hour. Your parcel lines haven't changed since 1989, she said. That easement's yours. I don't care what the HOA's landscape committee thinks. I thanked her, saved the document as a PDF, and printed 3 copies. One for me, one for the sheriff's office, one for Cheryl. The second call was to the Missouri State Agricultural Lease Division. My contact there, Ray Holloway, answered on the first ring. You said your tractor was towed? He asked, voice sharp. Yes, sir. HOA interference. They claimed my easement violated visual conformity. Silence. Then a clipped inhale. That lease is active. You're in harvest. That tractor's protected equipment under the state AG use clause. Exactly. I'll escalate this. You'll hear from legal. And just like that, the gloves were off. The third and final call I made was to the tow company, a scuffed-up outfit out of Weston that I'd dealt with years ago. The manager tried to be helpful, claimed they were following HOA direction and didn't know the tractor was part of a state project. You didn't check registration? I asked. Looked like farm equipment. The HOA gave us permission to tow. You didn't have the legal right. You touched state-leased equipment without authority. Suddenly, he was stammering. I'll waive the fee. Full refund. We'll issue a statement. Please don't report this to the department. I told him I'd consider it, then hung up. By sunset, I had a folder of evidence thicker than Cheryl's rulebook. The next morning, I walked to her house, not to argue, not to yell, but to serve. She opened the door wearing that same smug, curated calm, lips pursed like she was already writing me up in her head. Back again, she asked. If this is about the tractor. I held out the folder. This is your cease and desist, I said. From the state of Missouri. You interfered with active agricultural operations. That gravel easement? Mine. Legally. Your HOA doesn't supersede state law. She didn't take the folder at first. Just stared at it like it was covered in snakes. Mr. Beckett. Also included is a notice of potential civil liability. Any further obstruction of my work will be handled as interference with a government lease. That means fines. Maybe even a court date. The mask cracked, just for a second. Her hand twitched toward the folder, then away. She finally took it. I was just following procedure, she muttered, eyes darting across the top page. You weren't, I said. You were enforcing authority you don't have. And now you're going to learn the difference between bylaws and state law. I turned and walked away before she could answer. Back on my field, the wheat rustled like applause in the breeze. I fired up the combine, watching dust curl behind the blades, and smiled as the sun caught the fresh, state property, authorized use only, signs I'd hammered along the edge of the gravel. Let her try to tow anything now. The morning after I handed Cheryl that cease and desist, the neighborhood was oddly quiet. No clipboard patrol. No sarcastic emails about unauthorized earth-toned attire in public spaces. Just a still tension hanging over Clover Ridge like a storm cloud waiting to burst. Then the state showed up. 2 unmarked black trucks pulled up to the easement just after 9 a.m., kicking up dust as they idled beside the field. Out stepped a man in a blue windbreaker and mirrored sunglasses, followed by 2 others, one with a surveyor's kit, the other carrying a document satchel. They moved with precision. Purpose. Government muscle wrapped in polite smiles. Mr. Beckett? The lead man asked, extending a hand. That's me. James Noland, State Agricultural Enforcement. We're here regarding your report of HOA interference. We've reviewed your lease file, easement documentation, and the tow incident. It checks out. Now we're moving forward. He nodded toward the other 2. The surveyor was already setting up equipment along the property line. The third man removed a set of pre-printed signs from his satchel, bold letters against stark white backgrounds. State Leased Agricultural Zone. Trespassing prohibited. Do not interfere. Government operations in progress. Cheryl emerged from her front door like a groundhog spotting its shadow. Still in that yellow blazer, though now it hung loose on her frame, like she'd lost weight in stress overnight. She walked toward us briskly, lips tight, eyebrows arched in false confidence. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. James turned smoothly. "You must be Cheryl Knight? I am the president of this HOA. This land is under our jurisdiction." He opened his folder without flinching. "Ma'am, the easement and field beyond are not within the legal boundary of your association. We have certified parcel maps, state leases, and your interference was unauthorized. You're now formally barred from making further decisions involving this land. You can't just come here and post signs," she snapped. "Ma'am, you not only disrupted an agricultural operation under contract with the state, you authorized the illegal towing of protected equipment. That's civil liability. If you continue, it could escalate to criminal." Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, her voice failed her. He handed her a second packet of documents. "This is your formal warning. The next incident won't be a warning." She took the papers like they were burning her fingers. The surveyor's device beeped behind us. Lines drawn. Borders confirmed. I didn't need to say a word. I just crossed my arms and let it all unfold. By the time the trucks left, new signs bordered the gravel like a wall. The message was clear. My land was no longer just non-conforming to HOA aesthetics, it was untouchable. And yet, Cheryl didn't back down immediately. 2 days later, I caught her speaking to a few neighbors on the sidewalk, her voice hushed but animated. She gestured toward my field like it was a crime scene. But the shift had already begun. Word had gotten out. About the state. About the violation. About how close she'd come to dragging the entire neighborhood into a lawsuit. People weren't nodding along anymore. They were backing away. The HOA board met that weekend. I wasn't invited, but I didn't need to be. The following Monday, a letter appeared in every mailbox in Clover Ridge. Effective immediately, Cheryl Knight has stepped down from her position as president of the HOA due to personal reasons. The board thanks her for her service and will initiate a special election to fill her position. No apology. No admission of guilt. Just a quiet ousting wrapped in pleasantries. That evening, I saw her walking alone down the path behind her house, shoulders slumped, phone at her side instead of in her hand. No clipboard. No agenda. Just silence. The tyrant had been dethroned. But the season wasn't over. The wheat was nearly done, and I still had soybeans and cover crop prep ahead. The land didn't care about politics, it needed attention. Still, every time I passed the easement, I slowed just a little, looked at the signs, smiled at the space where my tractor had once been taken. It hadn't been just about the machine. It was about drawing a line and proving no HOA president, no matter how loud or laminated her rules, could cross it. Harvest ended with a golden hush. The last rows of wheat fell in perfect lines under the combine's blades. I watched from the cab, sun low on the horizon, dust curling into the air like smoke from a battle long finished. It had been a good yield, better than I expected, given the early setback. But more than that, it had been a harvest of vindication. I climbed down from the machine, boots landing in the soft churn of cut stalks. Beyond the field, Clover Ridge shimmered under evening light, porches lit, dogs barking, sprinklers hissing. The HOA signs still dotted the sidewalks, but their weight felt hollow now. Word had spread. People knew what happened. Knew Cheryl Knight had crossed a line no clipboard could erase. Her resignation had triggered a wave of questions, homeowners asking for transparency, meetings being open to the public, board members who'd once rubber-stamped her citations now tiptoeing carefully. She hadn't been seen at any of the events since. Not the community chili cook-off. Not the fall decor contest she'd once judged with ruthless precision. Her yellow roses had wilted in their beds. The hedge trimming service she forced on neighbors hadn't been by in weeks. Some said she was staying with her sister in St. Charles. Others whispered lawsuits might be coming, one from the tow company trying to save face, another possibly from the state. But I didn't care much about rumors. I cared about what the land taught you. Farming humbles a man. It teaches you to plant deep and wait long. To respond, not react. To understand that storms don't need to be fought, they need to be outlasted. Cheryl had come at me with force. I'd answered with patience, documents, and leverage she never anticipated. And in the end, the land won. Still, it wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. It was about restoration, putting things back where they belonged. A week after the harvest ended, I walked the easement with a fresh bucket of gravel, filling entire ruts from the tow truck. I wasn't fixing it for anyone else. I was fixing it for the land. For the work. That's when I saw her again. Cheryl, standing near the edge of her yard, arms crossed, eyes scanning the horizon like she didn't recognize it anymore. Her blazer was gone, replaced by a simple sweatshirt. No clipboard. No tablet. Just her, and the silence she used to control. Our eyes met. She didn't speak at first. Just looked at the field, at the signs, at the freshly leveled gravel. Then, quietly, "You really lease all of it to the state?" "Yes," I said. "Every acre you tried to control." She nodded. The silence stretched. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she said, more to herself than me. "Keeping the neighborhood clean. Orderly. Rules are fine," I replied. "Until they become weapons." She didn't argue. Didn't flinch. Just stood there, shrinking in her own skin. "I lost a lot," she said. "Friends. My seat. Maybe more soon." I didn't gloat. I didn't twist the knife. That wasn't my harvest. "I didn't come for you, Cheryl," I said. "You came for me. All I did was defend what's mine." She looked at the ground. "I know." Another pause. Then she turned and walked back to her house, slowly, like every step was heavier than the last. And that was that. No fireworks. No grand apology. Just consequence, natural, silent, and inevitable. 2 days later, a new face knocked on my door. A younger man in a flannel shirt and blue jeans, clipboard tucked under his arm, but eyes kind and tone cautious. "Mr. Beckett? I'm Connor Wells. I was just elected interim HOA chair." I nodded. I wanted to introduce myself and to say I'm hoping we can reset. "We'd like to work with you. Not against." That was enough for now. I extended my hand. He shook it. Back on the easement, I planted a simple wooden post with a sign of my own. No laminate. No fine print. Just 2 words carved into cedar. Respect boundaries. Not just the property lines, but the invisible lines between power and abuse, rules and reason, neighbors and enemies. The wheat would grow again next season. But now, it would grow in peace.